Okay, if you are new here, my name is Rebecca Beard. I own a company called NicevilleTutoring, but you are probably here because you want some help with your ACT English exam. And I have taken the April ACT 2026, and I have coached this exam so much. I actually run an ACT group. And what is really awesome with this new April ACT and in general, the new enhanced ACT is there are freebie questions built into the text that students are commonly missing because they don't know what they're looking for or they haven't prepped. So this video is designed to cover pretty much what is about 25% of the English test, which is significant. But a lot of these are super easy freebies. You just have to know what you're looking for. And it pretty much boils down into three types. So in today's video, it's going to be really simple. I'm going to go through these three types. And the way I'm going to go through it is I'm going to go through with examples from the April ACT. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this content and you want some math, we are going to be dropping some math videos soon. So let's go ahead and check it out. So one note I want to make before we really kind of dive into this stuff is that on this April test and any of the release tests, a lot of times they're going to leave out some questions. So if you took the April ACT and you're going to wonder why there is less questions, just a heads up, they have stuff that is called they're what are called field questions, and they remove a whole passage at random from the English and the reading section, and then about 4 questions from the math, and then a section of the science. So this does not have every single question that was on the April ACT, but 40 questions is what was actually graded. And these are actually covered, like these tips, these 3 ones are covered actually in 10 out of the 40 questions, which is significant. So before we kind of deep dive into this, I want to just give you kind of the 3 things that I'm going to call them. That is most common. I kind of made up my own name for it. I just call it major hints. And I will show you how, but it's pretty much when the question is like giving away the entire answer. You just have to know what you're looking for. Number 2 is going to be, they're called the redundancy questions, and there's a way to do those. And then 3 is going to be the tone questions. These 3 are really going to become like your favorite types. Now, if you look at a score report, you're not going to find these named on there, but this is kind of what I boil down to like better teach students and actually organize my own brain, because personally, the math comes easier for me. The English I've had to work at a lot. So this is kind of what makes sense in my head and hopefully makes sense in yours. So the first one we're going to cover is, like I said, the major hints. And I'm going to highlight a couple of them from this, pretty much from this passage. So I'm not going to go through and read the whole section, and you actually don't need it, to be totally honest. A lot of these you can kind of just read the question. So number 4 is going to be pretty much my first kind of easy giveaway. And we'll get into some harder ones too, but I think it does a good job of kind of just like highlighting what's going on. So on number 4, if you just look at the text, it says, which choice most clearly indicates that Logan's aim is to showcase artists and send a message? And here's the keyword: showcase artists and send a message. You don't have to think too hard on this. You've got before, rather, in addition to, or despite. And since you're doing an and an additional thing, it's going to be G. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, which is kind of crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and do another example of these major hints, and we'll go ahead and scroll down. So this is the release April 2026 ACT. So my next one that I notated, you're going to see me like looking down a lot because, and this is going to look crazy, is I have color coordinated notes, because this is how like I lesson plan and plan through my courses. I will link our June course below, and we'll also do a July course. But that being said, this is kind of how I organize it. So if you see me looking down, that is why. So on 11, like what students do wrong is they will try to fit in what they think is the best answer in this that flows the best, but that's not actually what they're asking. So on number 11, the writer wants to characterize the slide as benign rather than thrilling. And this is where it might be challenging. You might not know what benign is, and I'm going to give the hint is pretty much like good or not harmful. There's a few different words for it, but that's kind of the gist of it. So you want to look for something that is rather than or not thrilling. It's kind of calm, maybe even boring. So you've got speedily, you've got coast easily, barrel straight, and zip hastily. So zipping, speedily, like those are more thrilling. And then you got barrel straight and then coast easily. So barrel straight means like going straight down. And so the answer is going to be B. If it feels easy, that's good. Like this is their free stuff because honestly, there is some hard questions like the grammar and all that stuff, but this one is just kind of highlighting our free answers. Okay, next one is going to be number 15. So, given that all the choices are accurate, which one effectively concludes the essay by emphasizing a key characteristic of the Great Wall that is addressed earlier in the essay? So, this one is honestly going to be a little bit more nuanced because you kind of have to go like dig through this. But let's kind of break it down. So, concludes the essay by emphasizing a key characteristic of the Great Wall that is addressed earlier in the essay. So let's kind of look at our options are before we kind of go backtrack. So on number 15, you said happy with our decision to come here. I was just saying you're happy. B, as more tourists ascend, I can't pronounce that, in via cable car. Maybe. It's my favorite though. See, oversteps that have been here for a millennia, the characteristic, and then knowing we're not far from the city of Beijing. So if you just had to like not look back at the essay at all, like really the only characteristic is going to be C, which is the correct answer. Talking about the Great Wall, it's talking about proximity, and then as more tourists ascend, just via cable car. And if you're like, oh, what happens when you reference back? So if you scroll up also to the essay, the beginning of it, lengthy, distant, and if you just kind of skim through, it talks about like steps, being tall, really long. It talks about a section. It just seems never ending. And it honestly, it doesn't mention Beijing at all. So that's kind of how you would nail it down. But just kind of look for those keywords. Okay, I want to do one other, I would say, harder one of this, but it still applies. And you might be asking yourself, like, why would I cover this? Honestly, people are so rushed, including myself on this test, that it's really easy to like miss these massive context clues. But if you are primed knowing, and there's actually 6 of these on out of 40 that were graded on the April ACT, then you know what you're looking for. If you're moving fast, a lot of students miss this, or they read it too fast, or they're not like really paying attention to what the question's asking. The biggest thing you can do on this test is pay attention to what the question is asking, because there is harder ones, but these are kind of our freebies. Okay, so on, I would say a quote unquote more harder, like, or a harder question. So it says 28, the writer wants to employ vivid and expressive language that helps evoke the difficulties, there's a keyword, that the writers encountered. So we're looking for vivid and expressive language. We're looking for things that are descriptive and like difficulties. So that's kind of our 2 things we're looking for. So if you look at F, it says dealt with the clouds and mosquitoes and too many bumpy gravel roads. That's not bad. Like that one's pretty good. But let's go back to it. She navigated through large quantities of mosquitoes in a long, bumpy. So this one, if I had to compare between F and G, I would say if you're going to be more vivid and expressive, I would eliminate G. F is more expressive. And then H, slogged through droves of mosquitoes and rattled down rough. That's going a little bit more expressive. I kind of like H a little bit better. Encountered a lot of mosquitoes and rode down some rough. So that one's kind of like your least expressive. So if you're just going based on like all those key points in the text, which kind of stands out because it's going to be that more vivid and expressive language. And what a lot of students will do, they'll just kind of focus on the bottom half of this, but it's really asking for kind of that dramatic option there. And the answer is going to be H. Okay, our next type is going to be the redundancy questions. And they thought twisted us this time. It'll be the correct one, but now they changed it, which stinks, but it's still pretty easy. So on redundancy, there was like 2 key ones that I saw. So let's go back to number 13. And redundancy just means like repeating. Okay, so on number 13, it says, which choice is least redundant in context? And when you see those, it just means like less wordy, but still makes sense. So you've got, as we start down and begin our descent, and then you've got start to go down and descend, begin our descent, and then descend down. So if you were not being careful and you just choose the least amount of words, you'll probably choose to send down. But the problem is that one is not correct. because descending and going down are like kind of the same thing. And so that's not like the right answer. So on this one, you've got kind of two hacks. Your first hack is like, yes, on these ones, please start eliminating the ones that have like way too many words, which A and B are just gone. So that kind of makes it pretty easy. And then you've got beginner to sit and descend down. And the thing that you're looking for is if they're repeating kind of the same concept, you don't want to choose that one. And so C would be the answer there. And then let me go to redundancy one I saw. And this one's like more straight shooting. Okay, so 16, which choice is least redundant in context? And so on this one here, you've got there is a growing demand for schools to offer computer programming in lieu of traditional language as a way for their students to fulfill traditional foreign language requirements. So you've got this one's pretty long. So it's probably not going to be F. And then you got programming as an alternative means of meaning typical, and then programming as an alternative means of fulfilling, programming as another alternative way to fulfill. So you are looking for which is going to have the least words that actually does the job. So you eliminate F off the bat. And then G, like if you're looking at it, meaning typical, and then programming as an alternative means of fulfilling. So you would eliminate G because that's pretty fluffy. And then if you feel like as you read with J, like you kind of are like on a bumpy ride, they're like, why would you move a comma in there? Like you are right, so you eliminate that. And so the answer is going to be H. Now, the redundancy questions of the last couple of tests were actually even easier than this. You literally could have counted the number of words, but I may or may not have made a reel like talking about that. And so I kind of wonder, because I'm an ACT affiliate, so like I partner with them, but I have no contribution to writing this test. I kind of wonder if they heard about that and they're like, oh, maybe we need to fix that. That's my own theory, but there's a lot of people talking about it. So it's probably, I can't take all the credit for them changing that. Number 3 is going to be tone questions. And these, I will tell you, like tone ones are the ones that students actually typically miss because they overthink it and then they try to actually get the tone of the passage. What they're doing there is, yes, they're saying tone, and technically you are answering the tone of the passage, but they are giving massive free hints in here that is pretty much yelling at you of not to choose that answer. What you're looking for on number 23 is stuff that actually sounds like a normal human wrote it. And you will read things of the answers that seems like someone is trying to get a word count requirement. That's where you want to steer away from. So on number 23, I'm going to read these options out loud. And even if you've never done this essay, you actually don't need to do it. So let's see if these sound ridiculous. So on 23, it's language you know that furnishes folks with the most comprehensive insight and good fondness for the world. If that sounds crazy and assuming like stuff like folks and it's kind of jumbled like that, it's language, like if you're not going to write like that on an essay, you eliminate option. And then B, people from all over the world get really full understanding and a good appreciation of the world via language. That was not bad. We're going to go back to that one. C, renders for the whole of humankind an unparalleled apprehension of and admiration for the world. Like that is, there's so much extra words in there. You're not going to write like that. And then D, it is through language that humans gain the fullest understanding and appreciation of the world. So you've got a couple of things going on here. Is people from all over the world get a really full understanding and good appreciation of the world via language. And then it is through language that humans gain the fullest understanding and appreciation of the word. So you don't really have to know like what the tone is or what even the passage is about. Choose the one that you would actually want to put in an essay. And the one, honestly, that's the cleanest. Like B's not terrible. It's just kind of got some extra words. It's going to be D. If they sound like they're snobbish, like on C, or they're throwing in dumb words like on A, then they're gone. And then B and D is the one you would debate between, but D is just cleaner. And that's what you would look for in an English essay. It will take way less time if you do it that way. And then number 31, okay, is our last one we're going to cover, and that's also tone. So which choice most effectively maintains the essay's tone? So let's see which ones sound ridiculous. Say you've got skipped out on the whole thing. I hope you not put that in your English essay. We're just going to eliminate that. B, resolved to enact their departure from the tour. That's kind of a lot of words, but we'll see. Decided to leave the tour, and then packed up game over. Dear God, please don't put that in your essay. That sounds like someone needs to hit their word count, and that's way too much fluffy words. C, you're wanting to choose the option that normal high schoolers, like 11th and 12th graders, are actually going to be writing within an essay. That's what they're looking for. Technically, yes, it's answering the question's tone, but this is the easier way to do it. And then you can steal that extra time to think through your grammar questions and think through the other harder ones as well. Okay. So this is a little bit different style. The April ACT's math, like full walkthrough, it is a beast. And if you want to learn more about us, we do $99 courses.